business planning. And if you looked at the schedule that Liz sent out earlier, I have a great resource for business plans and game day coaching, and I'm going to go through this business plan with you, and we're going to take it into 4 parts. So there's actually 9 sections in the business plan, so we're going to do 3 sections today. We'll do 2 or 3 sections at the end of the month, and then the balance of the plan in December. So my hope is by taking 2 months here that you guys have plenty of time to go ahead and do your research and get your plan down, and by the time January 1 hits, you'll be off and running. So what we will do in between our owners and managers meetings is I'm going to go through a personal business plan with your salespeople. So make sure that you get them on the call here next week. And I'm going to get them, do some goal setting, project what they had for sales, make sure they recap what they've done this year. They maybe have to project out a little ways longer. So the idea then is that you'll have your company business plan done, and then each salesperson will have the business plan done, and then you can just merge those together into one plan. Now, Chris, I know you and I have talked a lot about this, and maybe Yvonne a little bit, but Jill not so much. Once I get my business plan established, I will take once a month at a minimum, and I will recap it. So I'll go back and I'll look at recapping sales projections, and Yvonne, and it's probably a good idea too for you to project reservations along with plan deposits, because obviously your deposits lead to purchase agreements and so on and so forth. So not a bad idea to do that, and I'll talk about that with the salespeople to check. Is to project reservations and or plan deposits if it's applicable. And then I go back. So what happened then is on February, the first week in February, I'll go back and I'll recap January. And then with Liz will be helping you and Adriana as far as your event management. Getting that rolling calendar going. So you planning your events out 3 months in advance and executing them as you go. And then you can go ahead and just recap each month. So the main metric, of course, of the business plan is, are you meeting your sales? And if yes, great, we'll pour the the fuel on, and if no, we can go back and adjust the plan. So one of the things I'm going to do now is this is going to be a recap actually today for probably some of the stuff that we went through during the Fast Start program. So some of this will probably just be a reminder. Some of it might be, oh yeah, I didn't realize to do that. So we're going to get into market facts today in your business plan, some pricing recommendations, and then market positioning. And then Runa will take over from there, and he's got a couple of dashboard updates that he will go through with you. There's been some additional functionality and tools specifically added for sales managers. And Runa, was there anything else that you wanted to hit besides the dashboard updates?
No, but I have a lot of stuff I could go into, so we'll just see how much time is left.
Okay. All right. So, any questions before we jump into this?
Nope.
I hear none. So let's do it. What I put on the screen right now, this is the template. This is a PDF version, and it has links in it. All these links are for resources inside Game Day Coaching. So there's also a Word version that I put that you can download if you want to just edit that and start putting your information in here. So we're working on the strategic marketing sales and marketing plan, and here are the 9 areas what we'll be covering over the next 2 months. So we're going to start out with market facts, and this is something that I would recommend that you involve your salespeople in. Have them find out some of this information. Then we're getting to pricing recommendations. A lot of that's going to come from MLS data. Then today, the last thing we'll cover is market positioning. Some of this stuff you already have done, but it's a good time to go back and look at it and look at your marketing message and your positioning statement, and just looking at, is it still relevant? Does it need to be updated? Does it need to be freshened up? So on and so forth. Then our next meeting we'll get into differentiation plan. We're going to really look at focusing on differentiating between used homes, because that's still our primary competitor. Then we'll get in and looking at doing research on your builder competitors and community concepts. If you're building in specific neighborhoods, obviously we've got to make sure that we have a comprehensive concept of what that neighborhood is, what lifestyle that neighborhood offers, and make sure that it's clearly explained as part of the sales process. Then we'll get into looking at your plan review. It's a good time, if you have floor plans that you are selling, specific floor plans, it's a good time to go back and look at those and tweaking those, or maybe you need to develop some new ones. And then we'll finish up with lead generation and lead conversion, previous review sales analysis. This is recapping your previous year. And then we'll put together an action plan, or you guys will be putting together an action plan of what needs to happen and when it needs to happen. So we'll jump into, right now, market facts and your local economic analysis. Now, you can get really, really in-depth with this stuff, and when I went through the ERM courses for NAHB, I mean, it's so in-depth, it's just overwhelming. And what I've done over the years is I've pretty much just streamlined this, and so I look at where can I get data easily, what data means the most to me as far as planning, and I want to get my salespeople involved so that they are part of this. So this is what the couple of things I recommend here for the local economic analysis. Starting off with local construction data. We want to look up permits. And so whether you're building in a county, a city, or a township, we want to look at what are your year-to-date permit activity, new construction permit activity. And the reason we want to do this is because obviously a lot of things get built that do not end up on the MLS. And so we want to be able to compare the information we find in the MLS with what we get on from permits. So planned units.
Look up start?
Pardon me?
You just want to look up starts, housing starts?
Housing starts, yes. Yep, permit data. And so normally you're going to call the building department of your county, township, or city to get those.
Okay.
Planned units is association maintained. So Jill, I'm not sure if Southern Meadows 55 plus, if that's association maintained or not, but that otherwise you're looking at just single family stuff. And you can also, a lot of times cities too, or at least the more sophisticated ones, they will break down permits by the dollar amount. And so if you're building in a specific dollar amount, you know approximately what that value is when you're submitting your permits to the city. And so then you can filter out. In other words, Chris, you guys, I mean, you kind of cap out at what, $300,000, $350,000. So it doesn't, the $500,000 to $600,000 permits aren't, I mean, if they aren't valid to you, then weed them out when you get your numbers. This I like to have salespeople do, because it's good for them to call the building departments to see how that works. It's empowering for them to, when they're talking to prospects, to show them exactly what is happening. And one of the strongest things a salesperson can do is when they're doing their initial presentation on the community you're selling in, is to talk about absorption rates. A home sells in this price range in this area every 3 days. Or there's a new home going up every 48 hours, or whatever it is. So by understanding the data and the MLS and the permits, they can create their own absorption rate, which creates urgency with the prospect. So then the other thing I like to calculate is, what is your market share? So you take your sales for the area divided by total permits and look at your market share. And here's a note you'll want to make on this. It's virtually impossible, 99% it's virtually impossible to do more than 25% market share in any market. So what you need to look at is what percent of the existing market share do you have in your specific locations. And this is what happens. I'm not sure if you see this, Jill and Chris, but as a sales manager, I always get these pie-in-the-sky projections from salespeople at the beginning of the year. Well, last year I sold 15 homes, but this year I'm going to sell 30. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great. How are you going to do it? Well, I'm just going to do it. So one of the things here, if I had the salesperson looking up permits, and then I say, okay, well, how many sales did you have and how many total permits were there? So that means you have an 8% market share or a 10% market share, which is pretty normal. I mean, that's a very good market share. Occasionally, though, when you get into more micro markets or smaller markets, you might see yourself like 15, 20% market share. So here's what you need to understand as an owner or sales manager is that if you're already pushing 15, 20% market share, for you to squeeze a whole lot more than that out of that particular location or market is going to be very difficult to do. So in other words, if you want to grow the business, you're going to have to look at either going into a different product type, price range, or geographic area to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and Yvonne, obviously you guys are at the top of the market, the very top of the market, so you got the whole pyramid thing going. And so, I think you realize that very well, is that there's only so many $1 million plus buyers, and so you have to have a bigger service area to make the numbers you want to make.
Yep.
Okay, so now we go to the MLS. And what I've done here for the MLS is, this is a great little exercise. I put a link in here, and I'm going to go ahead and show that to you. This is what's called a rate and inventory calculator. I have a little video on it here, but I've gone ahead and I have downloaded it for you. Very simple. If I go into the MLS, and there's instructions on here what to do. What I want to look at is the rate of sales and inventory level for my price point and product. So my criteria I typically use is I'll look at a home that is built 5 years old or newer. Somewhere between a $25,000 to $50,000 price spread in your area and competing areas. So what that means is that if my particular neighborhood ranges from 200 to 250, that's about the price spread I'm going to do. Think of your breadth of offering. Yvonne, you're going to have to get, you guys have a much bigger breadth of offering, so you're going to have to do this probably in chunks. Maybe take and do reports, based for every couple $100,000 or every $250,000. So maybe $1 million to 1.25, 1.25 to 1.5, and I know you build a little bit under $1 million to 750 to $1 million, something like that. The lower your price point, the narrower this should be. What you're looking for here is the hole in the market. Where is the hole in the market? Because oftentimes everyone thinks that going down a price point is the answer. But in reality, what happens is by everybody going down in a price point, you flood that market, and then the competition becomes stronger, the inventory goes up, and the demand is not there to meet it. So you have a flood of that. So by moving up 1 or 2 notches, you can find the hole in the market, and you can meet an unmet need. So I go 5 years or newer, 25 to 50 price spread. The price spread gets bigger as I go higher. So first thing I'll do is I'll figure out the rate, which is right down here. I'll go back and I'll do all of my solds plus any pending sales divided by year to date or 12 months, depending when I'm looking at this. So right now I go back to January 1 to November 7th, and I would look at what is the rate of sales in my price point, in my product type, in my geographic area for homes 5 years old or newer. And I'll put that information in here. So that I can do a 12-month rate, I can do a 6-month rate, I can do a 3-month rate. The reason I like to do 12, 6, 3 is because then I can see trends. Am I trending up? Am I trending down? And that's going to, be able to give me a realistic picture of what's going to happen next year. So this particular calculator, the way it's set up is, if I go ahead and I fill in the data here, it will automatically calculate for me. So I find out how many solds and pendings I have in the last, let's say, 10 months. I can go back 6 months. I can go back 3 months. And then it's going to give me an average here.
You pull the sold and pendings from your own personal inventory.
MLS.
MLS, okay.
Yep. Because hopefully you guys are putting your stuff on MLS. You should be if you're not.
Not everything.
Okay.
Not everything on there.
Yeah, that's something that, I know a lot of, Chris, are you guys putting your stuff on MLS?
We are. Once it gets done, we do.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so, and what you may want to consider doing, Jill, is you can put your stuff on as a comp sold. Since it's already...
we were trying to get to that.
It's a good idea to do.
Get all the information from my salespeople.
Well, comp sold, though, you don't have to put a whole lot on there. I think just the price, the square footage. There's only a few criteria you have to list on there. Okay. Obviously, it helps appraisers out, but it's also when you're doing work like this, it's very important. So solds and pendings, last 12 months. Then I want to go and look at my active listings. So if I look at the same criteria, how many active homes are for sale? And make sure, if you make a note here, you want to filter out to-be-builts. So get those out of there when you do your search criteria and just do active, under construction, or completed, homes 5 years old or newer. So once I have that, I can take my current inventory, however many it is, and I can divide that by the absorption rate, and that's going to give me how many months of inventory I have right now for my micro market. And we're looking for a balanced market or better. So what we're looking for is 5.5 to 6.5 months of inventory. It's considered balanced. And if I have a balanced market, now this goes back to our next section in our report, is we need to have a pricing strategy. If I have a balanced market, typically I can get a 10 to 15% premium over a comparable used home. That premium goes down once, based on a higher amount of inventory, and it can go up based on a lower amount of inventory. So example here, you're doing your different projections here, your different searches, doing your different rates. You find, let's just say it's 175 to 200. Maybe that's too low, Chris. I mean, probably 200 to 225. Let's just say you've got 8 months of inventory there. And then you do 225 to 250. You've got 7 months of inventory. And you do 250 to 275. All of a sudden, there's 3 months of inventory there. Okay, so that's the hole in the market right now that you just found. So that's what you should be attacking as you move forward, going after that unmet need. High demand, but not enough inventory. So anytime you find something with, like, say, 3 months or less, you need to jump on it and get on it quickly. This is also a report that I like to have my salespeople do monthly. Now, Chris, I know at one point you guys were doing that. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but it's so easy to run. You can save the searches in MLS and just, keep an eye on what direction are things trending. And as a general rule, if I see something over 8.5 months, I got to be really cautious, because what happens is once I get over 8.5 months, any premium for new construction pretty much, it's gonna evaporate. You get to 12 months or more, and you get no premium, and so that's where you saw a lot of markets back in the recession, where you had at some point. I remember doing some research, and there was 24 months or more of inventory. And it was just a wasteland, just no man's land, just got killed. Okay, so any questions on doing this? All right, I'm going to keep moving. So and if you have enough data, you can also break this out into new versus used. But the way I look at it is that if someone's looking at just at new construction, they typically aren't going to buy a home that's 15 or 20 years old, but they might buy a home that's maybe 5 years old. That's why I use 5 years old or newer. Okay, so you can put absorption rate of new in here, and you can put absorption rate of used. If you don't have enough data for new, I would also look at used, because remember, used is your biggest competitor, and it's probably good for the salespeople to do both anyway, just so they have a good feel of what the used market is doing. Most of the time, not all, but most of the time, the new data will be better. There's obviously less newer homes, and if you have a healthy market, there's a pretty good demand for those, and so you're going to see your inventory levels lower than used. But you got to keep an eye on it, on used anyway. Okay, and then here is just a note that they can put in here: how many new competing homes are listed for sale, and used competing homes listed for sale, just so you know what they are right now. So this is the final thing that I ask my salespeople to do. Okay, so I want them to say, you tell me what your opinion is going forward. So based on the local market knowledge, that would be, our home prices declining? Are they increasing? Are employers moving into town? Yvonne, you guys have Exxon, Exxon moving into town. Obviously, I think you mentioned there's like an incredible amount of jobs there. So that's huge to plan for. But do we have a company moving into town? Do we have companies that are increasing hiring? Are they laying people off? What's happening with my foreclosure rates? Most of your MLSs right now, they should differentiate if a home is if there's a bank involved, so if it's a short sale or a foreclosure. Those numbers have gone down a lot, but you need to keep an eye on them. So hopefully you can get that data right off your MLS. Is it foreclosure rates increasing? Are they declining? And then what are absorption rates? Are they expected to increase or decrease? What's that trend? Are they trending up or trending down based on that 3, 6, or 12-month history? So they're coming back and telling me, yeah, here's what it looks like. And then what I'll do is I'll have them put together a neighborhood forecast at this point. So now I don't have somebody coming back and saying that they're going to sell 30 homes this year in one neighborhood when they did 10 last year. Now they've got data, they've got hard numbers that they have to work with versus just pie in the sky projections. Okay, so any questions on that market facts on this information here? Basically just get permit data and then go to the MLS and look at that general local knowledge on what's happening with the overall real estate market and what is happening with the overall employment market.
We just see, because we're in a fairly large market, that there are so many even micro markets within the greater Houston area that it's almost like every little community has their own, all of this data that's different than the adjoining one. So it's like you would almost need to do this for 6 different areas.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you a quick story. I was working with NIH Homes with Jeremy, and they were in 2 communities. One was the, like, say, price range was $5 to $650, and the other one was probably $650 to $950. 2 different cities that adjoined one another, 2 different school districts. Mm-hmm. Well, what we found out was that they had a model price of like $569 in the one city in the one school district. We did this research on it. We figured out there was 8.5 months of inventory. It was just a glut of inventory. And then here's the backwards thinking. You would think you go up in price range, it would get worse. Well, we went to the adjacent city, different school district, 2.5 months of inventory for their 750 model. They're thinking about building a spec. Where do you think they're going to build it? Mm-hmm. They're going to go to where the unmet need is. So it's very, very important to have this information before you start doing any sort of speculative building or models, or and also wondering, hey, I've got this. They were looking at, well, do I need to do some sort of a promotion to get this home sold, this model home they had in there, and yeah, so it's good information to have. You need to arm yourself with it. But you're right, Yvonne. It does come down to the micro market. I mean, these 2 homes were 2 miles apart, and it was that big of a difference. It was 6 months difference in inventory. Okay, so pricing recommendations. So we get that information. We do a neighborhood forecast. And this forecast, by the way, will be on part of their personal plan too. And we'll work on that next week here. So they're going to project sales. And then also I want them to project what percentage of market share do they think they're going to have in this particular neighborhood. All right, so now we'll move into pricing recommendations. So pricing recommendations is what's called your breadth of offering. So any particular location you have, you're going to have more or less a pretty, I guess it's a dynamic breadth of offering, but it doesn't change that much. What is the low to high price range of homes that are built in this particular area? And so one of the things to look at is, based on the health of the market, is your lot to home ratio. Very healthy markets will see a higher lot to home ratio. So you're going to be pushing that 25% plus. Now, where this deviates dramatically, and Yvonne, maybe I'm going to pay attention, lakeshore and acreage. Lakeshore and acreage, and infill, I should say, can go up dramatically, that lot to home ratio. But outside of that, you want to be operating somewhere between a 15 to 25%. And any time your lot to home ratio is lower, it's better for you. Because if you think about it, when you're in a model home and someone walks in and they start looking around and they're market savvy and they say, wow, this is a lot of home for the money. Well, one of the reasons is because the lot to home ratio is low. So you're probably less than 20%. And a lot of the nationals, they like to operate, under 20% for the lot to home ratio. So not only are they buying right, and they have efficiencies of scale with their production-based methodology, but they also have a very low lot to home ratio, which makes the consumer feel like I get all this house. And at the same token, if the ratio gets too high, they walk into that house and go, oh, there's just not enough house for the money.
I have a dumb question.
Oh, there's always dumb questions, Jill, so go ahead.
What's a lot to home ratio? Did you say that already?
Yeah, lot to home ratio. A lot to home ratio is just that. It is, if you take your total sales price, it is the percentage that is the lot versus the home.
Okay,
So as
got
an
it.
example, on a 25% lot to home ratio, you would have a $100,000 lot and a $300,000 home. So it'd be a $400,000 sale price.
Okay.
So the lower, the better here. So again, if I go back and I'm looking at pricing recommendations, I'm looking at a couple of things. I've already looked at my inventory levels. Are they high, low? How much demand is there? I'm looked at market share, but now the next thing I look at is lot to home ratio. If I'm pushing that 25% or higher, then that's going to affect, it's going to affect what I can get for my homes. It's going to affect margins, and ultimately it's going to affect sales. So you should always shoot for 20%. But the problem with that is, of course, if you shoot for 20%, that means the total price gets higher. Because your lot cost is fixed. It's fixed, right? So if I have a $100,000 lot, and I'm saying, well, I need to have a 20% lot to home ratio, you're going to be at a $500,000 package. But then if you go back and look at your $500,000 price range, you're like, oh boy, I've got inventories of 8.5 months. Okay, so what happens is that you're going to have to bring your price point down, which means your lot to home ratio is going to go up. But if you still have high competition, if you've got high inventory levels, it's going to affect margins. Or you're going to have to just eat it on the lot. That's exactly what happened when the market crashed. The issues were not so much it was not so much the labor or materials cost, it was land cost. And land kept going up and up and up and up and up. Mm-hmm. And what happens is people just saying, oh, I wanted that. They kept maintaining that 20% lot to home ratio. Prices of homes went way up, and then it crashed. And the issue was not builder's margin. It wasn't products. It wasn't materials. It wasn't labor. It was the land cost. And if you look at the builders in your area that went out, I would argue that it was because they got killed with inventory, either land or specs. Mm-hmm. Which killed you. Those that didn't carry a lot of inventory did okay. And then everything went through the cycle of the banks going back. They were purchased. Those lots were purchased for penny on the dollar. What happened then? Then your lot to home ratios went way down into this range. And then what did the consumers say? Oh wow, look how much home I can get for the money. And they started buying the new construction again. So what's happening now is all those old lots that got recycled are now gone, and now we're developing new lots again. Well, what's happening now is we're pushing these ratios again up here. So it's constantly this roller coaster thing. You just got to make sure that whatever your ratio is, it matches your inventory levels and your market share. Any questions on here on pricing recommendations?
Sometimes it's hard, though, because the market turns so quickly. You may start on a project, at least the houses we're building, it can take us 3 months to design a house, and then if we have a 9 months of construction.
Yep.
So it's a real dance.
It is a dance, absolutely. And, when you're doing pre-solds and using construction or perm financing like you are, Yvonne, you get the appraisal up front. And I'm not sure. Can you get an appraisal done that'll last for 9 months now?
It depends upon who the lender and what's involved.
Okay. So I know at one point you could get six months from that initial appraisal to when they did the modification at the end. But yeah, that's the challenge. Especially if you're building offsite, is somebody has a lot and you're building that home, and then you get the home done and it doesn't appraise. But this is, also for when you're building your specs and models. Very, very important to keep in mind when you're doing this. Are any of you guys still having appraisal issues, or have those subsided?
We're having a few.
You are having a few still? Chris, how about you guys?
Yeah, we're having pretty pretty major ones right now.
You are still. And um, is it specific neighborhoods, or is it pretty much all over your market?
Well, it's all over really. 4 of the 5 neighborhoods we're in right now, we've battled at least one in the last 2 months.
Okay. So more reason than ever to put your stuff on the MLS.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we do it mainly.
Yep, exactly. So Jill, that's a good lesson is, if you are having appraisal issues, is make sure you put your stuff on there. And Yvonne, you should too.
Well, some of it, our clients, because they buy the lots, most of them have the lots.
Yeah, I suppose. So you would only have the house on there, so then it's going to actually hurt you and then help you if the lot doesn't get rolled in.
And we just had an appraisal issue just last week where one appraisal came in and it was $100,000 less than what our contract amount was for. So the bank ordered up another one, and they got it within $10,000 of what our contract was. So there still needs to be some work to be done in the appraisal industry.
The good news is you don't have to deal with FHA when that appraisal sticks to the property.
Right.
All right, so we'll finish up today with market positioning. This is something you're probably going to have to help your salespeople with. But if you remember when we went through our Fast Start, we did a market positioning for your company. And that's something we'll look at here at the end. But we also want to look at each particular neighborhood needs, you need to answer the question, why would somebody buy here? And if you're doing offsite on scattered lot, you need to also be able to reaffirm your marketing message and market positioning. So for each neighborhood you have, there needs to be some sort of unique selling proposition. And so obviously, what do neighborhoods have, by their very nature? What's different about them is the location. So the salesperson should be able to clearly describe the unique selling proposition based on not only the location in the community of your neighborhood, but if you have whatever amenities you have in your neighborhood. And I mean, the most basic amenity obviously is city services, if you have city services. But then it comes down to walking trails, and could be something as high as a clubhouse, with pool and everything else. So you want to be able to clearly differentiate your neighborhood. So offsite, Yvonne, I think you're the only one that's doing offsite here. Obviously, majority of your sales are offsite. And this is just a matter of going back and looking at your marketing message and your positioning statement. Do people get what you do right away? Can you clearly describe what's unique, special, and different about Morningstar Builders, so that relationship can begin? And obviously with the nurturing program and the value creation there, you're doing a lot of stuff up front, but it still comes down to face-to-face when you're with that prospect. In the back of their mind, they're thinking, why should I choose you? And so you got to be able to clearly explain that. Target market, if you have moved into new areas within the last year, have you updated your target market? And one of the things I put together is this inventory analysis template, and this is an Excel spreadsheet you can download. This has, let me go over here. This has, again, just the principal versus status-oriented psychographic profiles. It has a general build your buyer profile for demographics, an inventory analysis worksheet. Again, if you look at, remember what value as an equation is price performance divided by quality perception. Price performance divided by quality perception. When those two are equal, value is created, you'll get a sale. If the quality perception is higher than price performance, you get a sale. If price performance is higher than quality perception, you lose the sale. So that's a juggling act that the salespeople have to deal with. And so one of the things that's very important, I think, is to go through and look at this particular area is to compare the location, the product that you have, the promotions you're doing, the price that you offer, and the quality perception doesn't match the price perception. So you can go back and forth and you can compare all these. So as a place, the community location, second, third, fourth ring suburb, how important is that to your customers from the price perception? Are they willing to pay more money to be, say, in a specific location? or is the location you're in, not worth as much? So you can go back and you can compare this and try to get an idea of where you are at. And there's a little finding sheet here that'll automatically convert this value equation for you. Price perception divided by quality perception. There's also a link on here for the rate and inventory. We have ratios on here. This is a strategy. If you really want to get into strategizing, what you're going to build, there's 9 different market positions you can take here as it relates to going head-to-head with your competition. And the market line is here. So the idea here is if your market is going up, you take one of the strategies above the line. If the market is going down, you take one of the strategies below the line. So you want to get over your competition, or you want to meet increasing demand by getting above the competition. Quick example here, one of my clients is looking at a little infill project. It's just a little 9-lot cul-de-sac that is completely developed around there. Well, they're going to have lots of about 130 grand in here. And the price point that they're going to be in is directly competing with Lennar and Pulte. And Lennar and Pulte have lots of probably 90 grand. So right away they're $40,000 ahead. So what we did is we looked at, okay, what's the unique selling proposition for this particular location? So we went back into the sheet here. What's the unique selling proposition for this location? And one of the things we had, because it was infill, is we had walkability. We can walk to the grocery store. We can walk to the library. We can walk to the YMCA. It's very, very close to central amenities. So we had a unique selling proposition there. But the other thing that we did is we went and looked at everything that they were offering from a design standpoint. And that's one of the things we'll get into here, in the next couple of weeks, is the differentiation plan. And nationals don't like to build one-level homes. Both of them together had one plan for one-level homes. We were in an existing neighborhood and that was probably 20 years old. So our market is probably already in the neighborhood. The school district, this location has 2 different high schools. The school district that this location is in, or this particular high school, I should say, did not have any available homes. It was in the older part of town, so it was all built out. Well, we knew that there are people that have lived in this particular area for 10, 15, 20 years, whose kids are now in high school or have left high school, and they're in a 2-story home. So we knew if we were to go in here, we could build a Rambler, we could differentiate ourselves immediately from the competition. We have an established neighborhood, so people know what they're getting into. It's all infill. They are able to walk right to the amenities. They don't have to move too far from their church. They're in the kids are in the same, going to the same school. And we've only got 9 lots that we have to deal with. So we can create instant urgency because there's only 9 there. But if we were to go in and build head-to-head, like, going back to that scenario, build head-to-head with these national builders, that's suicide. Right off the bat, the lots are $40,000 less. There's no way we could do it. So one of the things here is that there's different strategies that you can choose when you're going into a new location or looking at even building a new model or a new spec home. So all that information is on here for you. So what's the reason people are going to buy for you on-site and off-site? Your target market, has that changed? And then, last thing is to go back and look at your marketing message and positioning statement. Are they still relevant today? Chris, you guys, back in the day, you took a very bold step with, the 90-day build times and, your guaranteed best price and that sort of thing. Is that still needed and relevant today? Has the market changed where you don't need that anymore? You need to adjust it? I mean, that's the things you need to be looking at right now. So any questions on the market positioning, this last section? Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to Runa. I'm just going to show you guys that this is the particular page that has access to everything that we're talking about. So this PDF that has all the links in it, you can download that for a reference, to getting access to all the information. and then you can go back and here you can download the Word version of that same thing, and you can go ahead and make edits to that and save it as we go here. So what you want to focus on is getting those first 3 sections done over the next 2 weeks. Runa, should I switch to your desktop?
That'd be great. Go ahead. Can you hear me okay, Rick?
Yep.
Okay. Well, okay. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so we have, let me just, could you do me a favor, Rick? Could you message Darius? Darius, are you on?
Yeah, he's on.
He's on. And can you hear me, Darius? That he's logged in,
Yes,
doesn't
I can.
necessarily.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Great. So let me go ahead. So just quickly, we have, I would say we have completed 95% of the performance dashboard. I want to quickly just review the, what we're trying to accomplish here. First thing is that we want to create an integral framework for sales conversion. So we want to make this as natural as possible to the process. The next thing is that we want to then focus on the lead to prospect, the prospect to buyer. But as we get the referred reward program done, we also want to look at the buyer to owner to partner. So that those are the principal goals that we have. Next is that we want to make this easy. We want to make it portable, and we want to make it fun. So I think that on a tablet, this thing is working very well now. On a smartphone, it's depends on the size of the the real estate on the smartphone. We want to enhance, as part of this, the communication between sales manager and salespeople. I think Chris should be excited about this. We want to enhance communication between Game Coaching Ubix and the users, basically salespeople. We want to users with different companies to be able to collaborate and work together to the forum. And then this, I think, is a springboard to one of my big visions, which would be a concierge capability for online visitors. So quickly, there are two views of this. One is for the sales manager, and one is for the salesperson. We're going to look at the salesperson first. Basically, the process steps that Rick has put together is that salespeople start with looking at the customer base to advance to move the customer forward, particularly with the A customers to B customers. Then look at opportunities that has been newly assigned to her or him. Then take actions to progress people through the life cycle. We then have the sales performance, which is basically the scoring of sales activity. And then last, a new thing that's not been available to salespeople before is that salespeople now have visibility and access to event follow-up. So the idea here is that putting the event in place is part of the management role, sales management role. Getting people butts and seats, getting people in the door is basically something that salespeople should be actively engaged in. So what I would do is that I'm going to minimize this, and I'm just going to show you quickly that, well, actually, I forgot to, sorry, I forgot to look at the sales manager side of this. Let me do that as well. So the track basically that we understand from the sales manager's point of view is that the first thing a sales manager would do in his or her process is to assign the leads, to assign the opportunities to the salesperson. Before that's done, nothing really happens. Then support the to-dos, keep an eye on the follow-up, make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. And then look at the overall database and make sure that people are moved forward to the different life cycle stages appropriately. Then go into the reward program, basically look at the performance and make sure that that's being done, that people are following up on the different bases, that they're following up on leads, following up prospects, talking to realtors, talking to buyers, owners. So that in a sense is the process. Rick, any comments to this?
None.
Good. I appreciate that. So if you look quickly at the login, here's a login for a salesperson. And the salesperson will see this screen. It's going to be a little different than the sales manager. So start with the customers, go to sales opportunities, goes to sales to-dos, scorecard for sales activity, and then to the monthly activity. I'm going to concentrate on the sales manager's view of this, which, as we just saw, starts with assigning the opportunities, keeping an eye on salespeople that the to-dos are done, make sure that the database, the leads and the prospect are followed up on, that conversion is done the way it should be done, and then on what Rick refers to the sales encounters, make sure that we see that the salespeople are actually covering all their bases, and then the event management. So here we can see, basically the pertinent information, and these are live links. So the numbers here are live links, which takes you directly to where you should do the action. This section here, how do I, and then there are 4 options. And I'm going to start with these actually, just so you get a feel for what's coming. This part up here is pretty much done. I would say 95% done. You're going to leave it, get feedback from you. This now is kind of where the focus is, and it's work in progress. But to give you a feel for what's coming, how do I use Ubix? Basically, Rick and I are working on user documentation for this, and that's in rough form, but I have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do it. Next thing is Google Hangouts. So we have selected Google Hangouts as sort of the collaboration platform between the sales managers, sales people, and this is kind of a guess that this is the right place to go, but I think it is. I have a pretty good feeling for this. Investigated online, look at what's coming. It's more of a prediction for what will be available, but the Google Hangout is going to be, and it's much like Skype or or other communication platforms. But this has chat. It does have SMS and chat integrated, but it's basically on portable devices, and I assume it's going to come on desktops and laptops as well. It has screen sharing. I haven't really dug into that. It has phone integration, so you could actually call directly on phone lines. And it also has the meeting capability, or in the future the capability that we're looking for sort of a concierge activities. So not going to go too deeply into this. I think that once we really figure out, we will have some separate training sessions for this. Forum is in place, and that's basically opens up collaboration between all of us. Between salespeople in different companies, between Game Day Coaching, Rick and Adriana Ubix. And the idea here is that there will be a dialogue about how do I do things, and then there will be instructional things for the marketing, sales and marketing side of this. And then the last thing I have is that we also have integrated the help desk into this. So you can be in here, you can click on get technical support, go directly to the help desk and get into it. Any comments, questions, rebuttals about this before I dig into basically the functionality on the dashboard?
I want to say that I think that it came out really well. I think that the new interface looks great. I like the functionality of the dashboard. It seems to be really user-friendly.
Thank you, Jill. That is very nice to hear. We're hoping for something. We're hoping for. I'll pay you later when we get together.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good comments too from both salespeople and sales managers. So.
Okay. Okay. Here is the and what we want to do as we go forward here is that we want to integrate and create intelligence decision support tools. So. This is the sales opportunities. The first thing a salesperson is going to look at, a sales manager is going to look at, is the sales opportunities. So in this one, and I have selected one salesperson. So the sales manager can basically see, what opportunities does this Aaron Lowe have, You can see that, you know, today he has 4. Yesterday he got 2. 2 to 7 days ago he had 21. But you can also see the average score, which is an indication of the quality of the opportunity that has been assigned to him. Then the sales manager will say, well, how well is this followed up on? What kind of job is Aaron doing in following up on this? Well, we can see that today's 4, he's followed up on 3 of these. Yesterday, he's followed up on 100%. Overall, he's about 43% total. The next question is Aaron getting his fair share? So this is the total leads within the company in this time frame. We can see that Aaron, you know, of today's leads, he's gotten about half of those. So overall, he's getting probably about half of what's available. There are 3 to 4 salespeople here, so he's getting his fair share. Reason is that he's doing a good job, and that's why we give it to the one that can really follow up. Then, as a help aid for the sales manager, we highlight the opportunities that has not been assigned. You can assign it right here. If Marty was on the call, she would be very happy with this.
I think Marty is on the call.
I am here, and I am very happy with that.
Are you happy, Marty?
I am happy. Thank you.
Good. Okay. And this is an indication. This is an idea of how we want to start highlighting issues, things that needs to be looked at. So sales opportunities without follow-up. So that means 0 follow-up. We have 1 for today with no follow-up, and we have 12 for the last 2 to 7 days. Well, to make this really stand up, Darius has highlighted these, so you can see the zeros right here, and it's very clear what where the follow-up needs to be. Okay. Then I'm going to move on to the sales to do. So this is where the sales manager is keeping an eye on the actions. We can see that there is the action request, which is basically indicates commitments from customer. They are completing surveys, they're reaching out, they're filling out, talk to, that type of things. We have then the resulting planned follow-up that should come from this. And then we can see what's being completed, what's going through the pipeline. We can see then that in this one, and I haven't selected a salesperson yet, in this one we have two items, both follow-up notes that has not been followed up on. So that stands out very clearly. We can also see that the same message we had in the sales funnel, we can also see that we have that here. So we have 31 of these items that has not been followed up on. So now it is time to follow up. So I'm going to switch this to Aaron's view here. Aaron is doing a good job, but there are still, 12, 13 here that he's not followed up on. Who are they? Who are the ones that we have not followed up on? Well, Darius has now created this pop-up that basically highlights specifically all the ones with 0 in there. So this is pretty much a view of the sales funnel with the zeros. And what you would do then is that you would basically go in, you could take each one here and go in and basically work with the salesperson to make sure that there's a follow-up note. And as you do that, you can sort of close down these, as you go back to this one, this reduces itself, and when you're done, you can close this. This gets refreshed, and you basically have done all your follow-up. Thoughts or questions?
This is absolutely amazing. You guys did an awesome, awesome job. Darius, thank you. Runa, thank you. Rick, thank you.
And I have to tell you, this is, go ahead.
It's better than I could have imagined.
This is years of frustration from managing salespeople coming out here. Marty, years. Chris and Jill feel my pain.
The fun thing here is that the fun thing is that the foundation is built, and it makes it very easy to do remarkable things. So we will continue. We will look for input from you guys, of things that will really make this easier. Okay, I know the time is
Bruno,
precious.
one last thing here too.
Right.
On the unassigned customers in the last 30 days, and then if you look at your opportunities, I'm not sure if you guys had seen this yet, but one of the things that we added, it was on that conversion sheet or that cheat sheet, is that you should be looking at your open rate and click-through rate, and so now we just calculate the percentages for you.
Very good,
as well.
very good. Yeah, it's actually almost sad. I mean, you look at these people here. 85.7% open rate, 21% click-through rate, 0 follow-up. 85, score points. So.
And you guys know, the baseline is typically 25% open rate and about 7% click-through. So you've got
look at the click-through rate on these guys here.
Yep.
Was that okay? Let me go. I have one more. I know time is well spent. Let me just do the last one here, and that is that is basically then keeping an eye on the database overall. So we have reduced down the maintained customers. Now you can go in, you can look at each segment. So in this one, we're looking at the leads and prospects. I got Darius to put in last activity date for the customer and last sales activity. And that means that any activity from the customer clicking on a link, responding to surveys, reaching out, any way that we have in the system, this is the last time he did it. And this then is the last time that the salesperson actually interacted with the customer. I think we can make this visually a little bit better, maybe display plus minus days between the two, something like that. But this will give you an easy way to basically go through, look at the A's and the B's, and decide if as the customer lifecycle stage is appropriate, if people should be moved forward or back in the customer lifecycle stage. So.
Runa, is this the link right from the dashboard, the performance dashboard? So, or is it actually going in to maintain customers and running a query?
I think that Darius would be the one but you access it from here.
Yeah. So if I click on that, the A prospects, does that open up into that screen you just showed me?
Yes. Yeah. Everything is at your fingertips. So, and we want to make this as intuitive as possible.
Okay. Okay, I see.
And when it comes up like this, it's going to be all the A customers, but you can then drill down to the individual salesperson. So we know that Aaron is doing a great job. Let's look at Brian and see, okay, so do a search on that. But I'm also thinking that this screen can probably be simplified down a little bit. And the other thing I should mention also, if you want to get to the full complement, you can just go to this one, and that will take you directly to the maintain customer screen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, that's it, folks. Chris, I would like to get together with you, and since you are here, get into a close collaboration on this. So
sure, we have to do it.
Yeah, one thing I will mention on the Google Plus, I use Google Talk right now. I'm not sure if you guys use Google Talk for an IM, and that's part of Google Plus. I have the Google Plus app on my phone, and I can send from my desktop. Or someone can send me an SMS message or in a chat message on Google Talk from their computer, and I'll get it on my phone. So I know that is working right now. So the idea is that, Chris, you mentioned this a long time ago, is when you're looking at, your salesperson's activity and you want to send them a note or a question on something, we wanted to put some sort of a texting capability into the system so you could send them a message without having to, go into email and so on and so forth. So if your salespeople have Google Talk or on their phone, if you send them a message here from your desktop, they'll get it on their phone.
And it's supposed to integrate both text message and SMS in the same thread.
Or instant chat. Yeah, I don't get a text from it. I just get a notification that I have a chat message from Google Talk.
Yeah. But this is also work in progress a little bit at Google, so we're just trying to go down the right path there.